Hello, 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 everyone. It's Dr. Tamar Beckford, and welcome to the Dr. Tamar Beckford Show. I am excited. Okay, today we're going to be talking about creating a values aligned life. We know we're going through life, but are you really going through life aligning yourself with all the things that are part of your core values? If not, you're going to love today's episode. Alrighty, before we get deep into aligning yourself and learning all about that, I am going to give our guest a great introduction, like I always love to do. So, this wonderful guest of ours, she is a graduate of the Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine in Blacksburg, Virginia. She then did her residency in Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation, PM&R, yes, at the University of Washington. After that, she decided to do a fellowship in palliative care and hospice medicine. She is now a full-time hospice and palliative care medicine physician, and she's also a life coach for women physicians. She's used coaching to overcome chronic overwhelm, burnout, dissatisfaction, and feelings of inadequacy as a mom. Through her experience and her personal experience, I should say, including infertility, becoming foster parents, adopting two children through the foster system, undergoing IVF, which is in vitro fertilization, for those who don't know that. She's also resulted in having a family of 4 children with unique challenges along the way. So, what is she doing? She's now created a life that is truly reflective of her core values. And through that, she is the CEO of Vibrant Humans, which is her coaching business, where she helps female physician moms create a life that they feel trusted and most aligned with them as a person. Who am I talking about? The one and only Dr. Sarah Wittry. Hello, Dr. Sarah. How are
Hi.
you?
Hi,
All
I
right.
am great. Thank you for that fabulous introduction. It was the most energy I've had in a long time from an introduction.
I love it. Well, you're doing such wonderful work. I mean, we can't just have you come on just anyway, right? We have to really put it
Yeah.
out there so everyone knows all the things that you're doing. Now, I cannot wait for us to really get into some of the core values. But before we get into that, I really want to get to know you a little bit better. And so does the audience. So let's talk about little Sarah. Was it little Sarah or adult Sarah just decided, you know what? I want to be a doctor. Tell us that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that I probably had an inkling that I always was drawn to like science and maybe medicine, anatomy, that type of stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
in middle school, in high
Yeah.
school, I actually had an experience of having my own dad as my anatomy and physiology teacher. And
Okay.
so that was fascinating.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, no pressure. It was like the hardest class at our high school. You only took it if you were like interested in medicine or veterinary school or something, you know. So that was always something. But then I think I was really drawn to science, really drawn to learning about the human body, right? And
Mhm.
then throughout college, I knew that being in a kind of job where I had the ability to have like the relationship with working with people, but also like helping them with their healthcare and kind of, I think a big theme that runs throughout my life is like helping people navigate
Ah.
has been huge. So I think at that point I didn't, was on that pathway and that's
Mhm.
how I was like, yep, I'm going to do medicine. I'm going to become this doctor to help people navigate like all of the ups and downs in life, right? But that
Mhm.
a big component of that included their healthcare.
Mm.
So absolutely thought I was going to do pediatrics though for a long time because I always have loved kids and did everything I could to like babysit, volunteer with kids, all sorts of things throughout growing up whenever I could, and
Mhm.
into college and early med school. I was like full board pediatrics for a long,
Oh,
long time.
I love it. I love it.
Hmm.
So let's talk about okay, I like the sciences. And you're like, okay, well, I like the sciences. What am I going to do? Dad's teaching anatomy and physiology. It's the hardest class in the school. Should I? Shouldn't I? Okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah.
I'm taking the course where Dad's teaching, and I can't fail, right? Can you? How could you fail when Dad's teaching?
Right.
And then he's staring
No,
at you.
totally. Totally. He was a tough critic. If I got like a 98% on his test, he'd be like, should have got those other two.
Oh, Dad.
I
So there we
know.
go. I love it. So Dad's teaching, and you are having this love for the sciences, but also the connection. You like the human connection and connecting with people. You did so especially with connecting people and trying to help them navigate, like you said, through the healthcare system. Your connection with kids had you saying, oh, I'm going to be a pediatrician as soon as I get to medical school, which is so funny. I think that's one of the number one. I get through this interview process, most of my guests went into med school and they're like, I'm going to be a pediatrician or I'm going to be an OBGYN. But now tell us, because for those who don't know, Dr. Sarah is not a pediatrician if you're just coming in and tuning in right now. So tell us what happened when you got to medical school that changed your mind.
Yeah. So I did some summers in college at St. Jude, right? Children's Research Hospital. And I, of course, was like really involved in their personal stories and really got really connected on like a very personal level. I think I didn't have a sense of boundaries at that point. And so the people that I would meet and get to know, like the families, I would sort of continue to follow their journeys online. And we will just say that I had a hard time separating myself in investment in, when things didn't go well. And it was impossibly hard for me to understand like how to have that separation. I remember like grilling some of like the attendings and the like MD PhDs people that I worked with there of like, did you ever find a way to separate? Because I knew I wanted a family, right? So it was like, did you ever find a way to just sort of leave the sadness of like cancer recurrence and all of that so that you could go home and be with your kids and not just feel like heavy all the time.
Absolutely.
But I still was like committed to peds for a while. So during my med school like rotations, I found overall that the general peds, I liked playing with them and hanging out with them and like doing the well checks. Like they were adorable, right? But that it wasn't for me in terms of like the rinse and repeat, just like going through a bunch of like pretty well kids. But I also was just emotionally challenged by the kids who were sick enough to need a specialist in any way or had like very medically complex needs. So I think even then I've always been like into self-reflection and self-growth and like understanding myself more,
and important.
And so a lot of like the people closest to me in my life were telling me in a way, and I think I knew myself, is like, this is going to be really, really hard for you to be able to separate out. And like, maybe it just means that you want a family, right? Like you just want to have kids and have your kids and have them be a big part of your life. And so I think that is what led me away from peds over time and it was kind of like a grieving process in a way, because I was like so committed to it. It was my identity. I was like,
been like doing research with kids. You've done so much up to that point.
Yes. Like president of like the peds interest group, like all of those things. I was like, team peds. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Totally.
Wow. So hardcore. Alrighty. Yes. So now you found PM&R. Like, how did you find PM&R? Did PM&R find you, which is physical medicine and rehabilitation?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. Like I was a little confused. I really liked neurology, right? And I also I went to osteopathic school. So I liked like the musculoskeletal part of things and like the hands-on stuff where you could like really use your physical exam skills to understand more about what was going on, like with muscles, bones, joints, all of that. And so I think that I remember taking quizzes, those quizzes that are like, what specialty should you be and blah, 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 when pediatrics wasn't going to work out. And I kept getting in different ones. I kept getting PM&R, and I like honestly didn't know what it was. And
Mhm.
so I did a lot of exploring and then like shadowing and jumped into their national conference. And my husband and I ended up driving down there like the end of my second year of med school, I think. Because it was like close enough. It was in Florida and we were in North Carolina at the time. So I was like,
Okay.
oh, let's just let me go check it out. Like see what
Let's
these
see
people are all
what
about,
things
see what
about.
they
I kept
do, you
getting
know?
told that this is what I should be doing, and I have no idea what this
Yes,
is. Okay, I love it.
exactly, exactly.
So road trip
Um,
to Florida.
yes, yes, yes. And I just felt like I was with people that like I resonated with so much, right? And it
Mm.
was like there's definitely an element of very much like holistic approach, teams approach. So like there's all these different facets of PM&R that are involving like the therapist you work with and like the psychology behind everything. And for people that aren't familiar with PM&R, we take care of people that have had like a life altering event in some way, whether it's
Right.
like a traumatic brain injury, a spinal cord injury, a big stroke, like something where they survive, but their life is forever different, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I just enjoyed the ability to like be there in that capacity for people. And I think I'm just I like to go deep with people. So it's just like a
Hmm.
way that it wasn't surfacey. It wasn't like all cognitive. Like there was definitely like an emotional connection, an emotional piece, and being able to have like real talk with people and help them walk through like what life is going to be like and sort of adjusting to that new normal and giving them support and validation and all of that was like really meaningful to me, I think, to do. And that's what I ended up choosing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's interesting going down this path where life where you think like this is what I'm going to be doing. And then
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that there are pros and cons of all decisions that we make. There is also a reason why you make these decisions, these mental
Mm-hmm.
attachments. So why is it that I'm attached to peds? It might, why is
Yeah.
it that I love hanging out with the kids, but does that necessarily mean that I need to be a pediatrician? And I love that you were able
Yeah.
to sit and answer those questions. Well, there's an element of this that I love, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that needs to be my whole pathway. It
Yeah.
could just really mean that that's just an element that it doesn't have to be the career, but it could be other portions of it that can give me the fulfillment that I'm looking for, right? So
Yes.
figure that part out, and then you're being introduced to something that you have no idea about, which is physical medicine
Mm-hmm.
and rehabilitation. You go now, you explore and realize, wow, this taps into my natural personality, which is the
Mm-hmm.
core part of me, working with the different facets of people to help someone who's gone through a life altering event where they've survived but their life has now changed. Now how do I get them to see not just how they can now approach this second portion of their lives, right? But also realize that
Mm-hmm.
it's more than just the medical part. It requires this holistic view. So
Yes.
now you're in PM&R, but then you decide to do hospice and palliative care. Now, a lot of people, when they hear hospice and palliative medicine, they go down this deep, dark road. This road of, oh, well,
Yes.
you've given up on me. And oh, no,
Right.
you no longer want to take care. And you've said the word hospice and you've said palliative care. That means you're no longer going to give me care. What
Mm-hmm.
you tell us why you chose that road, and how is it that what people think about hospice and palliative care
Yeah.
might not be correct?
Yeah. No, you're 100% correct. There are still all of those things that exist.
Hmm.
Um, but I chose it. So I would say it wasn't on my radar to do a fellowship in my first year. I was just like trudging through intern year, trying to survive like the ICU and the
Yes.
wards and all that.
Yes.
But second year, I did a lot of inpatient rotations for PM&R. And so we actually had a lot of family meetings and overlap with the palliative care team.
Hmm.
When some but he would have just like a lot of complexities. And I was so drawn to how they were able to synthesize information, like super medically complex information from multiple specialists, multiple surgeons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to say, like, this is like, let's zoom out. Here's what's happening. Like, deliver the information in a way that patients and families could understand and grasp and ask questions. Like, they're just so good at creating that environment where it's okay and it's safe to like say, I don't really know what they're talking about with this, or like when they
Yeah.
say this, what do they really mean, you know?
Mm.
And then I also just loved how we, like I say we now, but like back then, palliative was so good at naming emotions for people, because it's like so often left out, right? Or
Yes.
avoided. When people start like getting sad or looking overwhelmed, it's like people are like, we'll give you some space, and they like back away.
Oh yeah, it's the
um,
time when people run. Yeah.
yes,
Mm.
yes. So I think I just saw that as so valuable and so needed in regardless of what was going on medically for
Mhm.
people, just to like be willing to sit and hold space for people and to allow them to be human, experiencing human emotions of like challenging situations, right? And
Mhm.
not all of them being terminal, but being like big decisions to sift through and to try to like, realign what they value, what they care about the most, and really like come together to make a plan that was like in alignment with all of those things. And it wasn't just like all or none, like you're a fighter or you're giving up. Like it wasn't like that at all. And
Yes.
I think that's what people have a fear of, is that, even sometimes today when we walk in and say our team, it's like we always have to say, can I explain a little bit about what we do, or like even have you heard of us and what have you heard, because most people are like, uh-oh.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. So this is really interesting. I think it's important to for how you explain to people when they come in, because what have you heard of us, and what is it that you've heard about what we do? What is it that you
Hmm.
explain? What is your response to them? Because like you said,
Yeah,
there's usually the uh-oh, who just came in,
yeah,
the mindset is like,
yeah,
you've given
yeah.
up on my loved ones.
For sure. So
Hmm.
I'd say that we always emphasize our role in helping to manage their symptoms more effectively, because that's a huge thing, regardless of where people are at in their journey and what their goals are, right? It's like
Hmm.
maybe they're full steam ahead on medical treatments and aggressive care, and that's just fine. And they almost always have at least some, physical, mental, emotional symptoms that are coming
Hmm.
up for them and that no one's asking about or paying attention to.
Ah,
And so we always kind of like lead in with that,
yeah.
and then talk about how our team is, um, made up of many different types of people, like the social workers and the pharmacist and a chaplain, and like we're here to support you and your family. So it's like a unit.
Hmm.
Um, as you are trying to navigate the healthcare system, get the care that you need, and also to um, help you feel more confident in the decisions that you're making for your medical care. So I think it's a lot about like, we're here to help give you agency and make your voice heard among like a whole
Right.
lot going on, where people often feel powerless. Like they're just like, well, the doctor said, that we have to do X, Y, and Z, or that this is the next thing we have to focus on. And it's really just like we allow that space over time to
Hmm.
process and to kind of come up with what that person cares the most about and bring that to the forefront of their care.
I love it. Bringing to the forefront what the person themselves care about. It's deeper. So it goes with what we're talking about, deeper than their core, right?
Yeah.
So it's like bringing
Yeah.
this to the core. Now, your journey is that you not only have all these wonderful skills as, physician, a PM&R, and hospice and palliative care, but then you actually went deeper and became a life coach. What brought you to that part of your journey?
Yeah, I would say if I would have known about life coaching before, I might have done it rather than medicine, right? Like just because it's like the space that you get to have in like it's obviously not focused on like medical details and things like
Uh-huh.
specifics. I just love so much about it, but personally, I discovered coaching during the pandemic, where,
Mhm.
you know, I had previously been in things like therapy. I'd done a lot of like self-development work,
Mhm.
and use those things as tools, right, to help myself in my own growth and journey. Because it's like I've always been very keenly aware of like you can't separate the personal and professional. Like it all blends together, and it's all like
Right.
part of who you are, right? You take your whole self wherever you go. And so I've always been, yeah, interested in that. But coaching, I think, came to me at a time where I felt like I was truly drowning and burnt
Mm.
out, and a lot of personal and professional things kind of coming to a head, right?
Came
Um,
like around the same time.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. And just like my ability to continue doing what I'd always been doing, it was not working out. And I was fairly miserable and like just
Hmm.
overwhelmed every single day. Like felt like I was just trudging through mud, but also like I saw no end in sight. You know what I mean? It was like things are
Yeah.
getting worse. I can't hold it together. I'm about to lose it. And like I was terrified of what would happen and what that would mean, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
So during this part of your journey, I know that you said that you've had some personal experience, including like, becoming foster parent and journey toward parenthood. Was that part of the journey at that time when with like
So
in the 2020?
the coaching. Nope, that was all before. So we had like our infertility surprise during residency, and became foster parents during residency and adopted our first child during residency. And then we had our second child. Gave birth to my second child, and then our third child joined us via foster care adoption shortly
Mhm.
after that second one was born. So we went from I know. We went from 0 to 3 in a matter of like less than 2 years,
Oh,
with
wow.
a lot of emotions and like grief and just all the things that were grief and joy at the same time, right? That
Yeah,
were like packaged
absolutely.
into that.
Oh,
So yeah, but coaching and like my truest burnout, I think happened a couple years into me being an attending, and we had moved from Seattle to Ohio where we are now.
mm.
And so yeah, it's like those were a lot of up and downs and trying years. And I want to say a lot of things probably caught up to me that I hadn't like fully processed. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. So now one of the things that you through coaching, you've been able to really figure out some of the core values that align with your life. And
Yeah.
through that, you help a lot of other women physicians to, be able to get the alignment of their core values. What would you say or top four, top four core values that one should think about?
Okay. Well, I'd say that this is like maybe the most important thing about core values is that you resonate with them uniquely for you, right? And
Mhm.
so I think you can be really generic and say things like health, family, satisfaction, that kind of thing, balance. But I
Right.
found personally that like digging into it more and refining it for myself over time has been the most clarifying, and been able to help me use those actual things and like translate them into what does that mean? What does that look like if I value X, Y, and Z, at the
Mhm.
very top? So I don't know. And like James Clear, who
Mhm.
wrote Atomic Habits, he has
Yes.
a really good list of, I think it's like a list of 50 core values.
Mhm.
But the ones that I personally find to be the most impactful and personal for my life are probably like expansiveness, freedom. Freedom is a huge one for me.
Wait a
I don't
minute.
want
Didn't
to
you
be
say you
told.
had 4 kids? What part of freedom exists right now?
Yes, yes, I know. I
I'm
know.
just kidding, but we all understand as moms. We're
Yeah,
like, listen,
yeah,
everybody as a mom recognizes this sign. That's the I went to the pharmacy,
yes.
the fingers are under the door sign.
Right. No, 100%, 100%. But I think it's like there's so much in coaching that is about like how you want to feel and like what does freedom, what are the ways I actually feel that sense of freedom, right? It's more than like I don't want to be told what to do. I want to like do things on my own terms because that's true. Like I'm a rebel in that way. But I also have found and like figured out over time for me, and I'd say it's still evolving, right? As I'm growing
Mhm.
and learning and changing, is like, what are the things that help me to feel
Mhm.
freedom and,
Absolutely.
feeling that sense of like more expanded, more vibrant, more like energized in my daily life, like how I show up. I want to
Mhm.
feel energized. I want to feel alive. But it's like it's a lot of trial and error to figure out, what does that mean and what does that actually mean that you're spending your time on when you say you value like freedom or energy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What are some ways that you have been able to get into the space where you can say, okay, wow, this has energized me and I feel free? Like, what are some things that you do, such as, is it like you're writing things down and said, okay, I'm blocking this time off, or I'm going to give myself this amount of time every day, or like, what are some ways that you personally do it? And that'll give people ideas, of how
Yeah.
to feel energized themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that I got guided through some of this by my own coaches, right? But it
Hmm.
was like, let's say, I think values and how we desire to feel overlap a lot. So if I say like energize, that's like a feeling I want to have and embody, like
Hmm.
what things make me feel energized. And so reflection on that, but also like implementing them, doing them and saying like, I think this is going to make me feel energized, and then doing it, being like, does it work? Does it work? No. um, so like I don't feel energized after running. Like that's not me. But I do
Right.
feel energized after like a walk outside, and getting like
Mhm.
fresh air, fresh sunshine. Even if it's 5 minutes, like that energizes me. And that's something I know. So it's like I know over time it has a high return on investment for me to help me
Mhm.
feel energized.
Right.
Um, Another thing that energizes me is like deep conversations. And so like my husband's always like, "Oh, you're so deep. Like you always want to like talk about what's in there and what's underneath." Um and, and I don't always have that whole time and space to like dig in that much with someone, right?
Mhm.
But meaningful interactions that are like below that surface level of like pleasantries and small talk, it energize me. So I like look for ways to incorporate, a coffee date with a friend once a week. That's like one of my things I'm always hoping to do and to make sure is on my schedule, even if it's 30 minutes, right? Because
Right.
it does re-energize me and helps me feel like I'm prioritizing what I value. Um, and trying to think of what else, like yoga energizes me a lot, even
Mhm.
like 10-minute practices. So that's been another like mindset shift for me, and figuring out in practice is like
Right.
it doesn't have to be an hour long class. And I know I used to think like, well, it doesn't count if it's not, right? But it's
Yeah.
like even doing one pose of yoga that like recenters me is going to make me feel more energized and alive. And like that's what I try to focus on, because
Mhm.
those are the things I have control over and that I can reliably, like consistently show up and do, and knowing that they're going to, help me feel more how I want to feel.
Wow.
Does that make
This is
sense?
really interesting. Completely. And one of the things that I'm noticing too, for others who are listening, who are trying to get into the mindset of getting energized, sometimes getting energized doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a block of like an hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours. So you've said on multiple occasions, during this great conversation, that some of the things that energizes you, it can be as simple as 5 minutes. Like you said, like
Mm-hmm.
exerting and it doesn't have to be something that completely exerts and uses up the energy, because you're like, physically
Yeah.
running uses up my energy, but I don't feel energized at the end. However, walking
Mm-hmm.
in nature, even if it's 5 minutes, you feel energized. So you're drawn from that. You're drawn from
Mm-hmm.
conversation around those around you, deeper level conversations, so that energizes you. You get energized from doing yoga, but it doesn't have to be an hour long. It could be just a pose that's what, 5-10 minutes in one pose, and you still draw, and you're pulled, that energy is pulled into you from that. So, you know, it really leans in that to really get energy and to feel energized. You don't have to have an extended period of time, a block of time within even your day, right? So you can
Yeah.
have a lull in the middle and you need to get energized. You know that, well, a quick walk outside for 5 minutes energizes me. If you don't have that ability, if yoga energizes me, a quick pose, for
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, and I feel energized. And now I have that to take me along the second half of my day. Just wonderful.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Alrighty. So
Absolutely.
energy is one, and then freedom is the other. Freedom.
Mm-hmm.
We jest when we talk about freedom with family and so on, but that's also something that, you being able to feel and recognizing that it's something that you can control within yourself, right? How do I feel?
Mm-hmm.
Am I feeling free? Am
Mm-hmm.
I doing things that's giving me that sense of freedom? So we talked about two things.
Mm-hmm.
What other two core values that you, especially, you've pulled off from James Clear lists of core
Mm-hmm.
values that are really at the top for you, Dr. Sarah?
Yeah. I would say, hmm, like deep connection or relationship is absolutely one of mine. So like
Mm-hmm.
I looked how I can weave that in, whether it's through like coaching, conversations with my colleagues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like one-on-one times with my kids. Like I realized a long time ago, I wasn't going to be able to have, 30-minute block with each of them every single night. Like that wasn't going to be
It's just
realistic.
not
There's
gonna be
too much, too much going on. Um, and so what I do is basically have like a hour with each one of them a week, right? That we like
Mhm.
plan and it's like their special time. But that has allowed me to, they're each so unique in some of their things that they like doing and how they want to spend time together, but it gives them a chance to like look forward to something and like kind
Mhm.
of, brag about it to their siblings,
Oh,
all
I
of
love
those things.
it.
Uh,
You
yeah,
did.
like I'm going to get ice cream with mom. Then your day's not till Friday, you know? Like,
I love it.
yes. Yes. But it's just a matter of like figuring out how I can, right? And being more creative with those um ability to get those connections and have like consistent ways of having that deeper connection with people around me, because if I'm
Mhm.
not getting that, right, then I feel out of alignment now because I know that for myself. And so I'm able to recognize it more quickly and kind of not as a way to like beat myself up or being like, oh, I haven't been doing enough of that, but just a way to say, like, okay, how can that might be
Mhm.
why I feel a little off or a little whatever. And
Mhm.
so let's figure out a way like this week that I want to intentionally do something that is going to help me to fill that up and to fill that sense of like purpose that I get with those connections, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yes, I love it. I love it. And I love that time with the kids where they're
Yeah.
each getting their own meaningful time and bragging about it. Gotta love
Oh,
it.
totally. Totally do.
So now, one of the things about, our journey and our journey in medicine and our journey, just in life with all that's thrown at us is that at times we get burnt out, and it just happened to almost all of us. What
Hmm.
did burnout look like for you? What were some of the things that you noticed in your life when you're like, oh, you know what? I think I
Hmm.
might be burnt out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gosh, there was a lot. say more than anything for me, I felt really like a sense of numbness and disconnection, right? So it was like I
Ooh.
was going through the motions. I was going to work. I was seeing the consults, talking to the families, having those meetings, but I was like checked out, you know, I was just like almost cynical and like, oh, this is what they're gonna say, this is what they're gonna do. They're gonna tell me COVID's not real, like blah, blah, blah. um,
Mhm,
and I really
mhm.
started struggling with that. And I felt like when I was at work, that was what it was. And then when I went home, like all I could see was like the needs of my kids, and I felt them as like inconveniences. You know what I mean? Like, oh,
Yeah,
you always like need something. And I'm always like, I just want time alone. I just want like to be less hard. I just wanted to
yes.
people not to fight. Like it was very much just like that was the lens with which I was viewing everything was like it's too hard and I'm too tired and I don't have anything left. Um, and so yeah, I just felt very like numb, disconnected, like I just wanted to be on my own and I didn't want those
Mhm.
people to be around me and like just like wasn't sustainable, right? To like not want to be
Absolutely.
there at work, not want to be with my kids or my husband. Like I just wanted
Mhm.
my own space and but it continued for a very long time.
Yeah, and the thing about it, where for those who are listening, when you're talking about like the feelings that you've had and the sentiments and the emotion and the physical portion of burnout, is all of this you noticed were towards things that were very valuable to you. You've
Hmm.
heard it. For those who are just joining, you can listen to the first half of the conversation of how Dr. Sarah talks about why she went into palliative care and hospice. It's really was like, being able to make that connection. And for you to no longer want to connect, that's when you know something is wrong. Because this is something that
Hmm.
I value so much, connecting with people, being able to guide them through these process, and then connecting with my kids, connecting with my husband, having that deeper sense, like you said, more than just surface connection. And I didn't even want that. And that's not
Hmm.
me. And that's how you know,
Right.
okay, something's going on. I'm glad that you were able
Hmm.
to, get the help, the support through coaching, but then now you yourself are giving that to other women. When did
Yeah.
you realize, like, wow, this is something that I feel like my colleagues need? And what made you decide to start Vibrant
Yeah.
Humans?
Probably when I kind of got through my own burnout, right? And realized like I felt very empowered and alive and like, wow, this is possible. And like I was amazed looking from how I got from my lowest point of burnout to where I felt
Mhm,
like I was in charge of my life again.
mhm,
Um, and I think, you know, the perspective that I get on a daily basis from my patients, like the ones that are at their final days or weeks of life, you know, where they're able to talk to me about like the things they're really glad that they did and then the things that they're regret not doing is mostly like the regrets of not taking an action, not being bold enough to do something
mhm,
that they always were like, oh, that really would have been meaningful to do. And I meant to do it, but I didn't get time, you know, or didn't make the time.
mhm.
So I think it's like combined with those two things helps me to have that perspective of like watching colleagues kind of go through the motions on autopilot in some ways.
Yes.
Um, and just when they're like kind of chronically dissatisfied, right?
Mhm.
And I see it. So I think I relate so much to other physician moms because that's who I am as well, right? And I'm in the
Absolutely.
water as well. I'm in the
Yes.
water, I'm doing the swim. And I just find that that drove me to wanting to become a coach and to like have this business and this other way of helping people because it's so deeply meaningful for me to again be like a guide for
Mhm.
someone who maybe doesn't see it's like possible or practical
Right.
for making any like actual change. So it's like, you know, there's the type of people I work with where they're like, if you ask them like, what do you really want? They're like, I don't know, right? Like that's a silly question because they
I haven't
haven't
thought
had like,
about that in years. Like I know what
I
my
know.
I know what my patient needs. I know what my family
Yeah.
needs. I know what the kid, but what I need, I don't
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what do you really desire? People are like, I don't know, And we look to society, or it's been kind of prescribed for us for so long as physicians, as moms, and like looking to what other people do and their opinions. And it's like they just kind of fall in line with that. But there's
know.
this sense of like they're out of alignment,
Right.
with their true self. So there's that crowd. And then there's also the crowd that's like, I kind of do know what I want. Like, I want
Mhm.
more time freedom. I want more flexibility. I want more
Mhm.
time to travel or to, do more medical education and less whatever research based stuff, whatever it is.
Right.
But they don't feel like it's possible or practical for them. Like they immediately have all these, but I can't because, all these things and like
Yes.
kind of the logistics. Yeah.
The
So those are kind of the,
barriers. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, I love that you were able to not only find your way through coaching and getting the help to get back vibrant, right? Is that why we named our business Vibrant Humans?
Yes, absolutely. I love the
So
word vibrant.
so now you're vibrant and you're helping our other colleagues, our physician moms who are going through what you went through to get back that energy and feel vibrant, to get back that freedom and that meaning, and to get back to the core of who they are and all the things that
Hmm.
align with them at their core. So I love that.
Hmm.
Alrighty.
Yeah,
So now I have a fun question for you.
I would love it.
All right. So if you weren't a doctor or a coach or a teacher or doing
Hmm.
yoga,
Hmm.
let me see, what else did you talk about? We talked about yoga poses. All right, I'll allow you to be able to go outside. And I'll allow you to run if you needed to run. Okay, so what would you be?
All right. That's awesome. Gosh, that's a really good question. Uh, Couple things I thought of. One maybe would be an author because I'm
Ooh,
obsessed with reading, like really obsessed. And I think it would be really fun to like create a world, like a novel where you were able to like create the characters and this whole world.
mhm.
So I love like the creativity that goes into that. I love like how you can have like parts of yourself in characters or people that you know and like
Right.
create the story. I think it's an amazing, amazing thing to do. So
Ooh.
I maybe would be an author. The other thing I thought about was maybe a traveling yoga instructor
But you're not allowed to do
because
yoga.
oh
You had to be an
okay, then I would just be like a travel blogger, right? And like travel and tell
So
people where they should eat at.
I love it. I love it. So that's okay because we had another travel blogger and we had a travel photographer. So you have
Ooh,
someone who can take
yeah.
the pictures for you to add to your
Yes.
wonderful blog. So I love it.
Yes.
I love
That would
it.
be awesome. That would be.
Okay, as a travel blogger, what's the first place that you're going?
Italy.
Ooh, wow, that was
Yes.
quick. That was quick.
Yes.
I love
My husband and I, for our tenure a couple years ago, and before we had our fourth baby, we
it.
went to Greece, which was like my lifelong place, my first on my bucket list, but Italy is a close second. So I have to
Oh,
get there
nice.
next.
And you're going to have to blog about it because you said so.
Yes, totally.
I love it.
Totally.
Alrighty. So there are a couple of our colleagues out there. There are some women physicians who are moms like you and I, and they're going through things and they're trying to figure out, like, how can they try to really get to the core of who they are? They're just feeling like they can't even like trust the decisions that they're making, right? They're just like,
Hmm.
how can I get back to me? As you said, you ask them, what is it that you want? And the answer is, I don't even know. Where
Hmm.
can these people find you?
Yeah. So I would say I have a weekly podcast called Vibrant Humans. It's on Spotify or Apple. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just short conversations, 15 minutes or so a week, where I talk about different parts of figuring out, what you truly desire and how to take action toward it, like take steps and embrace the discomfort along the way. Um, and then also I have a blog, which is just Vibrant Humans, Sarah Wittry. And then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Instagram. Um, and I can give you a link to like a connection or clarity call to talk about what coaching would look like. I'm
Mm-hmm.
currently just doing one-on-ones, but I'm hopeful for a membership and group coaching in the near future as I'm like
Mm-hmm.
carving out space to do a little less clinically and a little more coaching. So I'm excited for all of those things. And I think that if people are feeling like they want a little bit more clarity and they want to make some little or big changes in their life, but need some support of like how to do that, how to learn how to trust themselves,
Mm-hmm.
of what they, actually want for themselves and not what they've been kind of told they need to do or should do, then I would love to talk to anyone and just even help with them with like a first next step, where to get started.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. So, for you out there who are physician moms that you are trying to get a little bit of clarity to get to that next shift in your life, either big or little big. Sometimes that
Hmm.
little
Hmm.
shift causes some big changes. Then we have
Yeah.
Dr. Sarah and her Vibrant Humans,
Woohoo.
sarahwitchery.com. You can go there and find out everything all about her. She has a wonderful podcast, she has a blog, and then you'll be able to check out and get a clarity call and see if you guys are aligned and then be able to work together to make those wonderful shifts in your life. Dr. Sarah, thank you so much for stopping by. Do you have any last minute words of encouragement, advice, or anything for those who are watching?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Beckford, for having me. It's been really fun. You've had a ton of vibrancy yourself, so I appreciate that so much.
Absolutely.
Um, and I would just say, for people like who are doubting, what's possible or like if anything will actually change, if you're in that place, I think just an encouragement that if you give yourself a little bit of time and space each day, even just a couple minutes where you're kind of just like turning your lens inward a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's just reflection, like thinking about it, or sometimes I think just like writing without being censored, right? Without like having the right answer or thinking like someone else is going to read this, like they're not, it's just for you. Um, Giving that couple minutes space for yourself to like write down things that you wish you had or that you wish were true in your life. I think that opens up a lot of clarity and like curiosity
Mm-hmm.
for what your heart and soul might be craving. And I think that, it's an invitation to kind of trust yourself. And over time, like things that keep coming up, those are like your little breadcrumbs to follow, right? As like a
Mm.
curiosity, because yeah, like you already kind of know. It's just that it's like bringing that to the surface is, I think, what is the process of becoming and kind of stepping into that next level vision for yourself.
I love it. So give yourself that free space to just create and to
Hmm.
put through whatever's on your mind without any judgment, not judging yourself, not judging the thought that others will judge you if they are able to look at your things. You're like, no, this is for you. And then just trust
Hmm.
whatever next steps you see that comes along
Yeah,
the way. Kind of like when you see the
yeah,
next stone rising from that water, you can just step on one stone at a time and it'll lead you to the path where you want to be. Love it. Love it,
yeah,
love it, love it.
absolutely,
All right, with
absolutely.
that, we're going to end today's wonderful conversation. Now, I know some people they are watching it and they said, you know what, Dr. Beckford, I came in at the end and I did not get to catch this wonderful conversation. I said, have no fear, because this wonderful, great convo is available on our Your Caring Docs website. That's URCaringDocs.com. Select podcast. You're going to see Dr. Sarah's beautiful face. Hit the download button and send it to 5 of your friends who you know will absolutely love this conversation, right? Now, if you are someone who you're looking for a dynamic speaker on stress management or burnout prevention for your next event, do not hesitate to contact me. All right. I'm Dr. Beckford. You can send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com. Or if you go to our Your Caring Docs page, just hit the work with me portion. We'll connect and we'll see if we can make your next event your best event. With that, we're going to end today's wonderful convo again, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.